Just one more hour until reinforcements, aka me, arrive to save the day. But until then, keep your eyes on the highway and keep on trucking with Jimmy Mack on Road Gang Radio, y'all.
Hey guys, welcome back. And of course, you heard Lindsay's voice. I'm in Lindsay land over here in Franklin, Tennessee. I made the jump to light speed, as it were. Left New Orleans last night around 8:30 in the evening and arrived here in Franklin, Tennessee around 4:30. It was a planned trip, by the way. I'm pretty pleased about that, as a matter of fact, to be able to kind of stop at the midpoint, kind of get a little cleaned up, take a breath, walk around. Did walk into, significantly cooler weather, and by significantly cooler, I just meant the mid-60s, which was a really kind of weird experience, drier and cooler. Nice to kind of step out into that. Headed up to some cooler weather after that today over in Columbus, Ohio, before bouncing over to Chillicothe. I will then have to drive back home. I'm not telling you this out of any sense of commiseration. It isn't like boo-hoo, poor me. Get over yourself, Jimmy Mack. All these men and women, like our good friend Trucker Bosun, having to make 3 stops, 4 stops in Kansas City's area just this morning. And great to see so many good people. Good to see my friend star driver number 1, who we all know better as Showtime. Our good friend Marty Ellis, Marshall Platter's out there. Joe is on the scene. Good to have you all, by the way. Thank you for taking the ride with us, as Claire likes to say, for sticking with us and keeping the traditions going here on, Road Gang Radio. And don't forget, Lindsay Lawler will be coming up here in just a little bit. But in the meantime, we got our great friends, the best neighbors anybody could ever ask for, Joanne, Ritchie, and Jim Park. Little JR and a little JP, OBAC.ca. Our friends from Canada have come a-calling, and I say to you all, from this beautiful new studio here in Franklin, Tennessee, good morning.
Good morning, Jimmy Mack.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning. We're all here. And don't forget, guys, if you want to just drop in and say hello, by the way, Starduster is raising money at a record clip, guys. So if he's out there and he wants to give us a call, we'd love to hear from him, or any of you guys out there at 615-292-6366. But it wouldn't be a Canada calling unless Joanne started us off with a quirky fact or two.
Yeah, I'm always looking for some kind of a quirky Canadian story, and this one caught my eye last week. There's a Cold War bunker in rural Nova Scotia. It started he's going to know exactly what I'm talking about. Anyway, it's being restored to its original purpose as a fallout shelter with a luxury spa and gym and cafe and lounge. This is crazy. So the bunker is in Debert, Nova Scotia. And it opened the bunker itself opened in 1964 in response to heightened threat of nuclear war. And it's a 2-story bunker, and there were 6 of them across the country that were designed to house the governments during a time of crisis. So these were the provincial governments, but there was this bigger bunker outside of Ottawa in Carp. And it was to house the federal government. So we were going to have all our federal government officials underground in these bunkers while the rest of us, disintegrated. Anyway, no
Bye.
kidding. This is really what happened. Yeah, I don't know who they were going to oversee when they got out, but they were called Diefen bunkers. At least the one in Ottawa was, and it after our then Prime Minister John Diefenbaker, who oversaw the construction of these bunkers. But in this little township of Debert, there's been way before the bunker, there was a military presence for years. It's has served a number of different purposes. It was a staging group at one time for just before the Second World War, where Canadian troops were staged there and then went on to Halifax, which is an hour or so down the road, to go off to Europe to fight in the Second World War. But anyway, the bunker thing was decommissioned in the 1990s, and it's now privately owned. It went through a couple of owners, and it became a tourist attraction of a sort, with laser tag and escape rooms, and there was a little kind of tours. You could go on a historic tour and a museum type of thing. So anyway, now though, it's currently being renovated into dozens of suites, and they're being built. It's being built as a luxury safe haven in the event of fallout, and it's going to be called the Diefenbaker, this project. So they've already sold 11 units. The company wouldn't disclose the price to the reporter who was writing the story for the CBC. Anyone looking to buy one of these units, you have to request an invitation via the company's website. But anyway, I forgot to mention that besides these luxury suites, there's plans to build a tunnel over to a neighboring former NATO building where they're going to grow their food, fruits and veggies. I presume they're all going to be vegan anyway, right? So anyway, the municipality of Debert, I don't even call it a town. I think it's called a municipality. It owns a little airport there, the Debert Airport, which is just private air. An air, it's you couldn't fly there. In other words, you'd have to have a private, belong to the flying club or one of the companies that flies in and uses the old hangars for storage and that kind of thing. But they're going to the person. His name is Guy Mansfield, and he's one of the owners of this project. He actually said some of these things that I'm going to mention. He mentioned that the Debert Airport, which neighbors this bunker, is just close by, that it's the proximity to the airport is really important to the Diefenbaker, so the clientele who have their own private jets can park nearby. That was key to selling these things. So, and he also mentioned that their security is paramount, and they're working with a company that protects the likes of Elon Musk and the Kardashian family. That's who's going to be supplying me. I'm laughing at this because it's just otherworldly. Oh, another perk, by the way, the condo owners will be able to rent out their units when the threat of global conflict and climate, disaster and cybersecurity incidents, when that risk is low, social unrest, so they can rent these out. And so when it's not being a doomsday bunker, you've got this little boutique hotel in downtown Debert. But he says, and this is, I'm going to quote him, he says, if somebody was renting it as a hotel room and something happened and they had to get kicked out, well, they'd get kicked out. He actually said that. Anyway, so here's the thing, okay? Here's the kicker. I lived in Debert. I lived beside that bunker. And I've been down in it many times. And I can tell you that the people that lived in Debert and worked there, they didn't call it a luxury spot. They called it the hole. That's what we called it, the hole. Two stories down underground. So it was this was the early 70s when I lived there, and it was the home of the Canadian Forces Communications Squadron, as well as the Space for Emergency Government. So, I mean communications as in wires and gears and fax machines and stuff, not press conferences and PR.
Can we just, by the way, Joanne, can we just call it the Dorkin bunker? Because it's a bunker full of dorks.
Well, God, you wouldn't. So my husband at the time was a senior military officer, and we lived in one of the 25 houses that were in Debert. There is nothing in Debert. There's just a bunker. I guess they wouldn't need anything else. There's a corner. We called it the corner. Had a little one of those old-time convenience stores, and there was a school and a little garage. But really, they do have a Tim Hortons now. If you come coming from Halifax, you get off the highway and you can go to Timmy's.
So we all, this is the plan. We're all gonna go park over at Tim Hortons, and when we see those guys going for the bunker, we're gonna make sure they don't make it. That's the plan. We're going to stop the population of the Dorkin bunker and let Dr. Strangelove do it on his own. He's in a wheelchair. He won't be able to. Bizarre. Just strange.
So this place, there's it's a military base. Well, when I lived there, it was. So there was a guardhouse and a gate that you went through. But once you were inside, all you saw was this huge grassy mound in this big field. And if you got closer, the doors to this bunker went in. And you went down, and it was so creepy inside. The walls were painted this sickly light green color everywhere. That was it. Nothing on the walls, like no pictures or anything. There might have been a few maps. There was a hive of activity in the space where the crew actually worked there. Desks and wires and phones and fax machines and stuff going. That was off limits to anybody but the military. And this was like big secret stuff here, right? Even then, the military part of it. So there was the rest of the space was the emergency space for the government, and it was bizarre. There were desks lined up, all set up with blotters, the filing cabinets. They actually housed duplicates of all the government documents came to Debert from Halifax. If you could, this was before the days of sending stuff via email or computers or anything. There was a kitchen and a dining hall, and there were some sleeping quarters with those very spare, military bunk beds like you see in the movies. And there was a CBC radio station all set up, the microphones and everything. This was all going to go into effect when the big bomb hit. So besides being this military base, there's nothing in Debert except now, we're going to have this luxury safe haven. I might go for a look. I probably won't be buying one of them unless we can set up a GoFundMe page.
I'm going to tell you right now. I got to pivot on this, Joanne, because I got to get to Jim here. But what I'm going to say is, after the way they're kind of treating the enforcement of trucking in Ontario, people might want to be incinerated by the big giant mushroom cloud. I want to give Jim a chance to unpack this. Fire away, Jim. Tell people what's going on. Just crazy stuff. Go ahead, Jim.
Well, we've all been complaining about the number of truck wrecks and crashes and fly-by-night driver Inc. companies out there lately. So, about a week ago, TruckNews ran a couple of stories back-to-back about truck inspection blitzes that the MTO and the OPP had conducted around Southern Ontario, one in Collingwood and one in Guelph. And they were trumpeting the fact that they put something like 30% of the trucks that they inspected out of service. And I just went ballistic. I was sitting at home reading this going, are you friggin' kidding? Like, what? So that was the genesis of this column that I wrote called MTO Fiddles While Ontario's Trucking Industry Burns. And the premise of it was basically they do these silly little blitz exercises, issue press releases. Everybody knows, administrators out there doing this good job taking these bad trucks off the road. Well, BS is what I called them on in this column. It's a smokescreen and it's a publicity stunt. It doesn't have anything to do with making the highway safer or getting the bad carriers off the road. It was one of those moments I flipped a switch in me anyway. So interestingly, I had some conversations with people who'd responded to the article, comments and what have you, and I've since dug up some pretty interesting information on MTO and their inspection station opening hours and number of inspections they've done, et cetera. That'll be coming up in a few weeks, I guess, once we get the analysis of that done. But the thing with inspections, I've said this before, I'm going to try and drive this point home because a lot of people don't seem to get it. But if you think about it, in the FMCSA's heavy truck crash causation study and in the Ontario annual road safety reports, they report things like the number of fatal crashes and additionally the number of fatal crashes where a defect was present that may or may not have contributed to the crash. And this was an eye-opener for me. I knew they were low, but not this low. I think the heavy truck study in the U.S. puts it at about 4%. And in Canada, or in Ontario, for a 10-year period, the average was 3.5%. 1 year, there were no fatal collisions where a defect on a truck was present. So I'm thinking, why are you wasting all this time checking for lights and burnt-out light bulbs and brakes and, various things that, should be working, but, okay, they're not. Are they critical safety defects that are likely to kill somebody? Statistically, no. So what's the point? That it all came down to, the industry's burning, and NTO is kind of going, yeah, la, light's good. We're doing all these inspections and putting these guys out of service. I mean, Jesus, if you're going to do a targeted inspection blitz, the out-of-service rate from those blitzes should be 100%. They should nail every one of the trucks that they pull over because they're going after the bad guys. What's the point in randomly checking 50 trucks and putting 30% of them out of service? Like, what is the point?
Yeah. Because at least with the inspections down here, Jim, I mean, at least they make it really clear when they have these inspection blitzes like, break week and all that stuff. They make it really clear to the drivers down here, look, we are actually, trying to coordinate and allow the people who are actually working on the road in a law enforcement capacity, giving them the opportunity to conduct inspections on a regular basis without disrupting year long. I read your piece, and I got to tell you, man, it felt like those police departments in really struggling inner cities that just raid the corners. They raid the corners and have these big sort of, high publicity drug bust, and we're told, look at all the damage we're doing, and then the next day everybody goes back to dealing drugs in the corner. And it really had a feeling like that. Our good friend Trucker Boson on the chat wrote, he says, is it in fact a money grab? I don't think that's what it is, and it's not what you're kind of outlining here. It really is a PR stunt is the best way to conceive of it, because they almost are paralyzed in what to do. That's at least what the article is kind of laying out, correct?
Correct, yeah. Yeah, I get the cash grab story from a lot of drivers, but I honestly don't think that's the case because there's not enough money here.
Right.
I mean, if the fines for an out of service or a break out of adjustment were $1,000 or something like that, I could say, well, yeah, maybe it's a cash grab, but that's also a pretty big disincentive. So right now it's like, speeding tickets and parking tickets, just enough to irritate you and let them take some money from you without, really solving the problem. So no, I don't think those blitzes and the truck fines and stuff that we get are cash grabs at all. That's not the point.
Yeah, and I don't think so either. I think it's really an attempt to kind of say, I think it's people who are paralyzed and don't know what to do who are saying we're doing something. That's kind of my take, and that's what my takeaway from your article was too. It's like these are people who don't know what the hell they're doing something. It's one of those things where we're going to do something, and it becomes more about waving your hands and say, look over here. And as you say, Rome is burning. Literally, it's a bad situation in regards to the industry over in Ontario, is it not?
It is, and I'll throw a bone to the Ontario Trucking Association here. They've been calling publicly for much more aggressive enforcement on the trucking industry because they say it's just not safe out there anymore. So when the leaders of the trucking industry in the province of Ontario start calling on the ministry to start enforcing the rules with the industry that they are supposedly being or advocates for, then there's a problem, because normally they would be saying, look, leave our members alone. We're doing the best we can. But now they're saying, come on, well, we can take it. Just roll over here, shut all these bad guys down. If you take a few of ours with them, so be it. But just get the goddamn enforcement started. So I'll give the OTA credit for that.
We got to pivot here because we're going to run out of time, and I want to make sure we cover a whole bunch of stuff because I want to know what in the hell a Cyclelogistics is.
You want to know all about Cyclelogistics? Well,
I think our listeners are dying to know. The heck with going from train to truck. What are we doing now? Tell me. Explain this.
Well, we're that last mile delivery now. We're moving to tricycles. Well, bicycles. Or tricycles.
That'd be interesting. That would be interesting.
So, yeah. So TruckNews published a story about this new study that the Pembina Institute has done, looking at opportunities to shift, last mile delivery to this, electric bicycles, what they call, and they call this trend Cyclelogistics. So they're kind of a Canadian think tank focused on clean energy. So their focus is a strong focus on the environmental side of things. And the report notes that, the surge in between 2019 and 2025, obviously during the pandemic, in online sales, and of course, that forced businesses and shoppers online, and there's been huge spikes in the number of the stuff that they had deliver in cities. This last mile delivery stuff, it went up like by 74% in 2020 between 1920. I'm in the other century, last century.
Come on, catch up. Come on, catch up.
Yeah, so that was a huge thing. So anyway, this left the city streets clogged with their delivery vans. Anyway, the study was focused on the city of Calgary, where they're using a few of these bikes in Alberta, and the whole the kind of tone of the story was even though that the studies showed that shifting a small amount of deliveries, just even a small amount, 1%, 2%, 3%, it can make a huge difference in carbon dioxide equivalent, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But the cargo bikes also offer, other advantages, including flexible parking and easy bypass traffic and everything. But the study noted that and like I said, this is in Calgary. They're not widely adopted there, and it was a lot of the people that the stakeholders that they interviewed. These were people in the logistics industry. They had limited awareness of the potential of these things and how to integrate them into their operations, and they know they're costly and that sort of thing. So there was kind of an overall, not great thing to the story, and I was surprised at some of the comments. There weren't a lot, but they were very negative. This is from truck drivers who have this kind of mentality, like trying to take our jobs away from us, kind of thing. We're talking last mile delivery, but anyway, get off your green high horse and all this kind of thing. But I want to skip from Calgary to my own neighborhood in Ottawa, where Purolator, our delivery company, the last mile delivery company, they rolled out cargo electric bikes and what they call these low speed vehicles in two neighborhoods a couple of years ago in Ottawa. One of them happens to be mine. So these are downtownish neighborhoods. They're mixes of residential and commercial. There's older houses. There's apartment buildings, a lot of small businesses, busy streets, a lot of one-way small streets and everything like that. And the hype that the executives gave at the time was, how this was so great for the environment and that sort of thing. But I happen to know, because I talk to these drivers all the time. They're parking their bikes on the side of the street when I'm going in to get my coffee at Starbucks and everything. So they absolutely love their jobs. And it's just, I've only talked to 3 or 4 of them, and it just happens that all of these are former truck drivers. They used to drive for Purolator, doing that last mile delivery in the, on my street or on the, the street where the shops are. And the biggest thing for them, it's not necessarily the green stuff, but it's just the ease of getting around as not this delivery van. That they can go in the bike lanes, and like I said, they're actually tricycles. I think Park sent you a picture of them. They're big tricycle, and they have quite a fairly big van kind of thing on the back, and then the front is a windshield that comes around them, so that it's kind of it's not enclosed, but anyway, it's then they have to pedal a little bit to get it going, and then it's electric bike. But they can maneuver traffic if they know their neighborhood where they're delivering. They can zip down another street if the traffic is bad, and so the productivity is actually so high, and 30 to 40% more efficient than trucks in terms of delivery per hour. And this is Purolator's own numbers, what they were when they were practiced. They've got more than the few that they started off with. So these bikes, they do about 60 packages per trip. They have their little dolly and they roll out all the stuff. But here's the cool thing. When they're empty, they just go down literally 2 blocks to the little mini warehouse, fill it up again, plug their bike in if it needs a little bit more of a charge. They zip back to this warehouse, and they absolutely love it. But they said that the key is really knowing your neighborhood. One guy is quite chatty. He likes to talk to me, so I've got the scoop on that. So, but the e-bike, it's got a battery life of 40 to 45 kilometers. But like I said, they can, top it up when they're back loading up again. And they're winterized, so they go year round. Not just and they give the drivers these really high tech uniforms like biker things to deal with the cold, so they don't really mind that as well. And they get to decide whether if it's too. There's kind of company protocol, but then if it really is too slushy or the streets haven't been plowed, they can delay their stuff. So they also have these little, what they call low-speed electric vehicles. They're larger than the bike. They're very like one of those little small cars, and but they're shaped like a delivery van. And they have a little bit like longer battery life, 90 kilometers, and they can go up to 40 kilometers an hour and carry a bit more cargo. So I just thought it was interesting that the people that are actually doing this really like it. And
I have a friend. I have a friend, Joanne, who actually makes his living as a pedicab driver. He's also a trainer, and he told me that being a pedicab driver is the easiest way he's ever had in his life to stay in shape. By the way, both of you tell truck drivers how much you love them during National Truck Driver Appreciation Week. You first, Joanne.
Yeah, I just, I am on the road a lot myself. And I pass a lot of trucks, and I'm being passed by a lot of trucks, and I can't imagine the courage and the stamina and the knowledge and what it takes to be out there in that world delivering stuff all over the country. And I give a huge shout out to anybody who's doing it the right way, and that's many of the folks that are listening to us for sure.
And Jimbo, take your crack at the title.
Folks, I spent 20 years out on the road with you, shoulder to shoulder, sitting in the restaurants, showering together. I know what you're up against. It's a lot worse now than it ever was when I did it, but I know you deserve a hell of a lot more than a hat and a belt buckle for a year's worth of safe driving. So take it easy out there. You matter to me. So long. Good luck.
I hope that's really clear for both of our friends from the best neighbors anybody could ever have, Dre.